Today in Sarasota County. Detectives are currently conducting an investigation into a deputy-involved shooting that occurred in the early morning hours in Nokomis. I'll give you as much information as I can right now, try to get the information out to you. I want to remind everybody it's very preliminary, and we're still at the scene, processing the scene and interviewing witnesses at this time. With that said, I'll do everything I can do to give you a description of the incident and to answer any questions that I'm comfortable with answering, knowing that the investigation is still going on. Just before 12:45 a.m. this morning, the Sheriff's Office received a 911 call in Nokomis, out of the Nokomis area, reporting a disturbance at the Palm and Pines mobile home RV park. According to the caller, he heard loud noises, screaming, and possible gunshots coming from the area within the RV park. The first deputy arrived on scene within 4 minutes of the initial call being received and was directed by citizens to a common area in the RV park. The deputy observed a suspect on top of a female who was screaming, who was later identified as the suspect's wife. While approaching the suspect in the incident, the deputy made verbal commands for the suspect to get off the female, and as it continued to approach and making his commands to the suspect, and the woman was screaming, the suspect revealed a weapon, a firearm, to the deputy. As the deputy continued to make verbal commands for the suspect to drop his weapon, a citizen witness jumped on the suspect. The suspect immediately threw the witness individual off his back and pointed the weapon at the deputy. During the encounter at the time, this fluid motion of the suspect, he also at one time placed the weapon inside of his mouth. When the citizen was on him, as he threw him off, he put the gun out and pointed a weapon at the deputy, and the deputy discharged his weapon one time, neutralizing the suspect and killing the suspect with one shot. This is an active and ongoing crime scene. The deputy is here, as we do in all shootings. He's being interviewed. His name at this time is not going to be released because it is an active, ongoing investigation. And so we take these very seriously. We don't like this. It's an unfortunate situation, but the ultimate outcome is that the citizens are safe. The lady who was being beaten upon by the individual is safe, and everything's neutralized. There's nothing there for the community to be afraid of at this time. So with that said, it's very preliminary, but I'll try to take any questions, answer any questions anybody might have.
Was the couple still together, or were they afraid?
They're husband-wife.
They were, okay.
Yeah, so this is a violent, what we would call domestic violence encounter, where the suspect is on top of her. She's screaming for help. The 911 call comes in. The caller knows he hears the loud screaming. This is a very close, confided mobile home park. They're right next to each other. So the caller hears gunshots. So he believes to hear gunshots when he calls our 911 center. And so when the deputies dispatch, he knows there's some type of violent encounter going on with a great potential of a gun being involved, because gunshots have already been fired. So yes.
Is this their home?
This is their residence. Yes, this is where the individuals live.
Does Coleman have a history? Which department has he had?
No, he's got a very minor history, nothing significant. So this is a chance encounter that we've had with him. So it's an unfortunate situation, and it's unfortunate there's a weapon involved and a gun. Certainly, the deputy gave him the verbal commands to try to de-escalate it. The individual put the weapon in his mouth at one point in time. So everything occurs within probably 45 seconds from the deputy arriving to this encounter happening. And so it's very fluid. Citizen gets involved, very chaotic scene. And unfortunately, when the individual points a gun at the deputy, that's when the encounter ends.
I was going to say, in terms of the citizen who got involved,
Yeah.
Was there any communication regarding that citizen before they stepped in?
No, that was something, as my understanding, remember, it's very preliminary. The interviews that we're getting back right now, as my understanding at this point in time, was that this wasn't something that was anticipated. The deputy's giving verbal commands upon his arrival. He's approaching the suspect on top of his screaming wife. He's ordering him to get off of this lady, his wife, and as he continues to approach, giving the verbal commands to engage him, the suspect shows a weapon. The deputy continues to engage him by giving verbal commands to drop the weapon. A citizen jumps on him. He throws her off immediately, brandishes his gun again, points at the deputy, and the encounter happens.
Two more quick questions.
Mhm.
So the citizen who jumped on was a female.
Yes.
I guess I have three. So in terms of information for the public, would you say, I know you're still looking at this investigation, but in general, what would be your advice to bystanders when there is a
Yeah.
deputy approaching a dispute of this nature?
Well, certainly the neighbors and the people that are called for our assistance, we want to be there to encounter it. So it's a dangerous situation. Now it becomes much more dangerous when citizens get involved in that. That's what we're trained to do. The deputies are trained to de-escalate a situation. Our hopes would be that he could have de-escalated it and toned it down a little bit. That was what he was trying to accomplish with his training and what he's trained to do. So him giving the commands approaching, the commands when the weapon is seen, trying to de-escalate it. Who knows what that situation, if it was heightened or not by this individual citizen getting involved or not. We don't know that. We can't say for certain, but what we do know is what happened, and it's unfortunate. And unfortunately, the suspect pointed his weapon at the deputy and the encounter occurred.
And from start, when the deputy arrived, to when that one shot was fired, approximately how long was that time?
It would be preliminary, as my understanding, talking to the detectives right now, is less than a minute. I would say probably closer to 45 seconds. So you can see as a citizen starts to understand these type of shootings, they're rapidly occurring. The deputies and the police officers rely on their training and the way they're trained to work. Everything just comes natural and fluid to them. The orders, the de-escalation, everything that they're doing. Having a citizen get involved doesn't help, because we're trained to de-escalate it, they're trained to de-escalate it, and that was what the deputy's trying to do, is de-escalate. So we can't say for certain if that caused this shooting, but certainly it's not a good thing for citizens to get involved, especially when law enforcement's on the scene. Let us handle it.
And you said that the wife of the suspect was in the hospital. I saw
Yes.
that she's been,
Yes.
an update, has she been released? How's she doing now?
The wife of the suspect's fine. She was at the hospital, and she's been here with the detectives, and they're doing the interviews of her and the other witnesses at the scene right now.
She's cooperating.
911?
She's cooperating, yes. Yeah, sorry.
The 911 caller reported possible
Gunshots,
fire,
yeah.
gunshots before. Is there any evidence that the gun was fired before?
We haven't, we're still processing that scene. So to be quite honest, at this time, it's still so fluid. We're still on the scene processing it. We haven't even recovered the weapon yet. It's still at the scene. We know the gun's there. It's with our suspect. So we do see things at the scene, but I can't talk about what evidence is at the scene right now because it's still ongoing. Okay?